Okay, so while your covers are drying, the next thing you're going to do is prep your pages. You're going to put them into signatures for the next step. So a signature is a chunk of pages that gets sewn into the book at the same time. So if you look at the spine on this book, you can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chunks of pages. And within each of those chunks, if you look at this part, you'll see that they were sewn down the center and that there's actually about like 5 pages that are nested within each other to be sewn in independent signatures within the book. So that's what we're going to start to do next, is prepping our signatures. So again, I decided that my book would be 9 by 12 inches, so I'm using 12 by 18 inch paper, and I'm going to fold them in half and then nest them within one another. For folding, you just need a flat surface. You don't need a cutting mat. I just have a cutting mat on my art desk at home all the time. You're just going to take your pages, match up the corners. When you're folding them, and then you just want a really nice, good crease, which you can either do with your fingers on a flat surface, or you could use something like a card to crease it, or my favorite thing to use is I have this particular bone folder that I really, really like, and it just puts a nice crease in things. And then the pages are going to get nested 5 within each other. That's going to make one signature. So you should decide how many signatures you want to have in your book. The more signatures, the more sewing involved, the thicker the book, the more pages you have to draw on. I'm going to do 5 signatures, so 5 signatures of 5 is going to be 25 sheets of 12 by 18 inch paper. So that's what I'm going to move on to. So I'm going to continue to fold these. You want to make sure that you crease the paper really well. You want to make sure that you put it inside of all the sheets that you're using in the same signature. I wouldn't use more than 5 pages in a signature, otherwise it'll get too thick. Then always check and make sure that your pages are going nested inside of each other. You don't want to end up having 2 pages that are stacked instead of nested, because they'll fall out when you go to sew them. Once you have 5 sheets nested with one another, you can go ahead and move on to the next signature. I'm doing 5 signatures. You can do more than that. It will just make your book thicker. Okay, so I finished folding my signatures. So I did 5 signatures with 5 pages. I wouldn't do more than 5 papers folded in half for each signature, just because it gets like thick and clumsy and difficult to sew. And so my 5 signatures are here. So this means my book will be about that thick. So it's a thinner book. You can do more signatures if you'd like to. Just keep in mind, the more you go, the more flexible the spine of the book will be. So for instance, if you look at this book, you know, the spine does flex back and forth, and this has 6 signatures in it. This is also sewn with beads in the spine, which makes the spine more flexible as well. Okay, so the next step, I'm going to figure out where I want the holes for the sewing to go. And to do that, I like to rubber band right around kind of the spines of the signatures like this. And then I like to put them against a ruler. And so remember, the height of my book is going to be 12 inches. So I'm just making sure that it's lined up with the 12 inches on the ruler. Then what I recommend is always doing a hole that is about 1/4 of an inch from each of the edges. Okay, so I'm going to do 1/4 of an inch here, and then I'm going to go up to 11 3/4 and put a mark there. And so that's going to be where 2 of the holes are punched. You always want some that are closer to the edges, so that way they're sewn in there and they're not kind of flapping around. Then I would do at least 3 more holes for sewing. You can space them out however you please. I am going to do just 3 more. You could do more than that. They do end up creating kind of like part of the decorative part of the spine, especially if you add beads to them. So this one has 6 areas where it has been sewn, 2 on each of the ends, and then 4 additional ones in the middle. Again, spacing is up to you. I'm going to go ahead and do one right in the middle here at 6 inches. And then I think I'm going to go ahead and do one at 3 and then one at 9. So they're pretty close to being evenly spaced. These are a little bit closer than these are from each other. Once you have them marked, the next thing that you're going to do is hold the ruler like this against the spines of all of the signatures, and you're just going to take your pencil and just make sure that you run it by the ruler and that each of the signatures ends up with a little mark there. So I'm going to go ahead and do all of these, and then I'll show you a little bit closer what I mean. And then this way I'll be able to punch holes in each of the signatures separately to be able to sew them. Okay, last one. Okay, and so you can see here that each of the signatures has a little mark at each of the spots where I'm going to punch the holes. I can take the rubber band off now. And what I'm going to do next is set up to punch holes in each of the signatures. You'll see that I have some paper clips here. That's something that's also going to be involved in the next step. So you will want 4 paper clips per signature. While this step isn't necessary, it does make the sewing step a lot easier. So since I have 5 signatures, I need 20 paper clips. So I went ahead and counted those out. All right, I'm going to get set up for punching the holes, and we'll move on to that. So for punching the holes in the signatures, what I need is an awl, which is just a sharp, pointy device used to punch holes. You could also use an ice pick or even a nail to do this step, just something that has kind of a tapered tip to it. I pulled out a scrap of chipboard just to be something underneath where I'm poking the holes through, so that way I don't end up pushing a hole into the desk or my cutting mat that's here. And then I have my paper clips as well. Okay, so I'm just going to set these to the side up here. And then each signature, I'm going to open it up. And just remember, make sure that each of your pages are nested inside of here like this. Not that they're folded next to each other. That's really, really important. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and place paper clips on the top and the bottom of each of the pages. Again, this is a step, you don't really have to do this step, but I like this step because it makes the sewing much, much easier. As soon as you're done sewing, I recommend removing the paper clips immediately, so that way they don't put dents into your pages. Okay, and then I'm just going to go ahead and flatten this out, and I'm going to take my awl and just where the fold in the spine of the signature is, I'm just going to punch this through. Okay, and I like to just push and turn with my hands sometimes. You can also tap it in with a hammer if you wanted to. You don't want to push the awl down too far because it does taper and get thicker as it goes towards the wooden handle. You don't want your holes to be really, really wide because we'll just be using a waxed linen to sew through this, and so it's not a very thick string. So just keep that in mind. You don't want to make the holes too big or it will not look as nice. Okay, moving on to the second one.
Okay, then you're going to go ahead and repeat the process for all of your signatures until they all have paper clips and all of their holes punched through all 5 pages. Then we'll be ready to move on to punching the holes in the covers.